Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me here at Journey of Faith with Pam. I know a lot of you are experiencing some really cold weather this weekend. We're pretty lucky. We're having actually it's really nice out. It's a little chilly, but it's not bad. Not bad at all. Very nice. I'm sure you all heard that Merrick Garland announced yesterday that he was assigning a special counsel to to run the investigation of the documents found at Mar-a-Lago and as well as the January 6th episode. I just find it a little interesting that that was announced just a few days after Trump announced that he was running again for presidency. Then, on the other hand, you've got the Republicans that are saying that if they get control, they're going to do an investigation of not only Hunter Biden, but Joe Biden as well. Things could get really, really interesting. But me personally, I don't think there is one man in particular that is going to fix the mess that our country is in. I think the only thing that's going to fix what we're going through is that people start turning back to Jesus Christ. We're going to get started. I have a Bible verse for us today. And this one is from Psalms 127:3. And it reads, "Children are a gift from the Lord. They are a reward from Him." See, I take those words quite literally. Children to me are the best blessing that we could get. And I'd kind of debated on whether I wanted to speak about this or not, and finally I decided I would. Children today are going through a lot, an absolutely horrible situation. Many children do. Many do it in silence and they never say anything. And I'm talking about basically the unseen, unreported things that happen to children, like sexual abuse, mental abuse, and physical abuse. And I know this firsthand. What can happen and how it affects a child. It can affect a person for the rest of their life. I personally was from a very large family, had lots of aunts and uncles and cousins, and the funny thing is nobody would ever say or do anything. They didn't want to get involved. And even when somebody would step up and say something to someone, people would question. Well, no, they couldn't do anything. They're a good person. They go to church. They do everything they're supposed to. They're taking care of children sometimes that aren't them. What I'm talking about is like from blended families. Sexual abuse on a child is a very, very horrific thing. And most times that happens with people that a child knows, family members, friends, not always, but a huge majority of the time. And even if a child does speak up, and they're told, no, that can't be true. That absolutely can't be true. That child that's sitting there and is so quiet and never really says anything, you need to spend some time with that child. You need to look into what's going on. I'm not saying be a busybody and report everybody for every little suspicion. But when a child constantly has bruises on their body and they don't really get out and do things that other children do, you've got to wonder what is going on. What is going on? And I don't understand, I've never been able to understand how people can just turn a blind eye to a small child that is so dependent upon adults, and no one usually is there to help. I just can't understand it. Because many children, if they don't find a solution and things aren't fixed with them and things are not corrected, well, let me just give you an example. A lot of times when you hear of younger adults and even children doing horrific things, my first thought is, honestly, what did that child go through at home? What did they experience? What could have possibly put them on this path? Yes, I know that some people are just evil. I totally understand that. But many times it comes from the foundation. And I know it's just so important, your foundation, to know that you've got both a mother and a father that you truly, not just on Sundays, that's a completely different thing. Because to me, somebody that goes to church just on Sunday and does not practice what they preach, because that actually turned me away from the church for a long time, is when you would see people, they was like a different person on Sundays, but out in public, the rest of the week, they'd be doing completely the opposite. Our children are our future. And if our children are treated this way, what does that hold for our future? You know, even in Matthew 18, 1 through 3, this verse kind of comes out to me as well. And it says, "At that time the disciples came to Jesus saying, 'Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?' And calling to him a child, he put him in the midst of them and said, 'Truly, I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven.'" And that is so true. That's the way it's supposed to be. That is absolutely the way it is supposed to be. But if things have entered a child's life, such as mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, their whole mind, they're not innocent. They're supposed to be innocent, but they are no longer innocent. And everything then in their whole life gets turned upside down. And I think this is such a touchy subject for me. And I've always been one that would speak up for children. And there was a thing the other night on the news about a 14-year-old girl in town that beautiful house, very, very nice house. So what I'm talking about, just to back up, these type of things, they don't discriminate. It's not a particular race. It's not because you have less income. Things like this happen to all children of every walk of life. But anyways, there was a neighbor that said this was a 2-story beautiful home, looked like it was a fairly new home. 14-year-old girl had, on the second floor, had tied sheets together in order to climb out her bedroom window and went into her neighbor's backyard. The neighbor asked the little girl, "Can I help you? Do you need something? Or are you all right?" The little girl begins to tell her, "I was just so thirsty and I needed something to drink." She goes, "Do you need some help?" And the little girl pointed to a tall ladder. She goes, "Well, I have to get back in my room before my parents come home." She goes, "No, you need to call 911. The little girl didn't want to. She said no one would believe her. And that's true. People on these sort of things, and I can't understand it, for a simple, helpless child, why nobody wants to get involved. Finally, the neighbor convinced her to call the police, or she called the police, I'm not sure. And they had come to find out that the mother, the father, and the grandmother had this little girl in her bedroom with a padlock on the outside of her bedroom door, and had a 5-gallon bucket, pail, whatever, in the bedroom for the little girl to relieve herself. And somewhere in the conversation, the little girl was asked, "Well, do you get anything to eat?" And she said, "Yeah, when my mom comes home from work, I'll get some food." That's horrible. That's not a life for a child. People need to speak up. This is our future. These are our most prized possessions. And it's just so upsetting that people don't do anything about this. People, some do, few do. Many people are like, well, they seem to have a nice family. They seem to be doing what they're supposed to be doing. Like I say, many times they go to church. And people just don't want to get involved. Well, like I say, there is a fine line in getting involved. But if you know something, if something doesn't look right, who else is going to speak up for this child? I mean, how could anybody do such things to a sweet, beautiful child? Don't know why. I guess it just struck me when I saw that. And it was weighing on my mind so hard and so heavily that I knew I had to say something, because it's something that I feel so strongly about is our children. And if our children are put on the wrong path, and that's what we're supposed to do as parents, is of course teach our kids the Word of God and to do right by our kids. We lay the foundation of what our kids will be in the future. This other verse, there's one, and I forget which one it's from. I totally do. But it was, "Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged." Not only will they become discouraged, there's no telling what they will become. And any of you out there that have a problem, you have gone through it, I would seriously love to hear from you, because and it took me a long time to say, hey, no, it wasn't me. I was a child, and these are children. And I'm just asking you, who else is going to say something for these children? Well, I have got some baking, and I have to run into town and do some shopping and get some last minute groceries for my Thanksgiving dinner. And because I've got so much baking, hopefully I will be able to come back on again before Thanksgiving. But if not, have a blessed Thanksgiving. Hopefully you get to spend it with your family and have a wonderful holiday. Bye-bye for now.